It is ominous, but if you look at the advance of the Taliban, it is something that is a reasonable expectation. Just in the past week, the Taliban has taken now about 10 of the 34 provincial capitals. Now, the capitals are really critical here, Bev, because we know that the Taliban stronghold traditionally has been in rural areas. So once it gets hold of those city areas, it is able to build on that offensive. If you look at a map of Afghanistan right now and you shade it in different colours, you would see that the Taliban has more control of more of the country than the government. The rest of it is contested. And that means it is very ominous when you talk about the potential for a strike on Kabul. There is no doubt that this is what the Taliban is seeking. Salmeh Khalilzad, who is the American negotiator involved in the talks with the Taliban, has already said that the Taliban wants to take the lion's share of power. It is not looking at a power sharing agreement, but returning to power in and of itself. And as these provincial capitals continue to fall, it moves ever closer to a full-on assault on the capital, Kabul.
Well, let's talk about those peace talks, because what impact does this very aggressive offensive have on the chances of those peace talks? Does it give the Taliban the upper hand?
Well, the peace talks have come to a stalemate. They're not moving at all at the moment. And again, this comes back to the fact, I think it was one quote I read from a Taliban negotiator: why negotiate when you are ahead? When the moment they believe that the momentum is with them. You know, it's an extraordinary thing when you think about this. There's been a 20-year war fought here. Australian troops involved in this as well. Tens of billions of dollars have been put into the Afghan military. And yet here we are, 20 years later, all of that investment and training in the Afghan military. And as the American forces prepare to pull out, and Joe Biden is saying they will be gone by August 31, we see the Taliban once again resurgent. It shows a couple of things. It shows that corruption is endemic in the military. It shows there is a lack of leadership and a lack of faith in the government. Even if you listen to some Afghan people over the past couple of weeks, some are saying that the Taliban is bringing order and security. This is almost a rerun of what we saw when the Taliban first took power. It took power in areas where the government was weak, where the government was seen as corrupt. It was involved in a civil war against other warlords, and initially was celebrated as bringing order and peace to those areas. And of course, we saw what ultimately came: the Taliban enforcing their own hardline rule, and it became a haven for groups like Al-Qaeda, which led to the 9/11 attacks. But we're right back where we started from.
Well, let's talk about the role of Pakistan. You, a decade ago, Stan, spent time embedded with Pakistan troops, and they were at that point battling the Taliban. But now Pakistan is considered to be supporting the Taliban. Is there a lot of credibility to that idea?
Oh, most definitely there is. And even when I was there reporting out of Afghanistan and Pakistan, Pakistan was playing a deadly double game here. Pakistan has long been accused of playing off the United States, of which it is meant to be allied, with its support for militant insurgencies. The militants, the Taliban and others, are often seen as a form of strategic depth when it comes to Pakistan's big battle, its existential crisis, this existential standoff with India. And it sees the Taliban and the Taliban returning to control in Afghanistan as a way of providing a buffer between Pakistan and India to not allow India to get greater support inside Afghanistan itself. Now, you rightly pointed out at the start there that Imran Khan says he wants to see this settled in Afghanistan by Afghans. But the reality is there is a long history of the Pakistan supporting the Taliban, both funding the Taliban. It emerged out of the madrasas, the Islamic schools in Pakistan. Pakistan has been a home for Taliban leadership. Even now, it's accused of sheltering Taliban leaders, of allowing them to arm themselves and then move back across the border into Afghanistan. One of the really critical things here, Beth, is that the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan essentially doesn't exist. It's known as the Durand Line. But to Pashtun people, and that's where the Taliban emerges out of, on both sides of that border effectively does not exist. Now, the danger for Pakistan is that while it may support the Taliban inside Afghanistan and may play that to its own ends. It's always faced its own battle with the Pakistani Taliban. And the Pakistani Taliban have often sought to overthrow the government in Islamabad. So it is a deadly embrace. On the one hand, playing a Taliban off against others that supposedly allied with the United States, supporting Taliban on one side, battling Taliban on the other. It has a tiger by the tail. But Pakistan is absolutely critical to any outcome here. It helped bring the Taliban to the negotiating table. It is absolutely critical to what happens from here.
And Imran Khan has also said that, Ashraf Ghani has got to go, that he is the problem. So it would look as if Ghani's days are numbered, but then is there going to be a power vacuum? Is there a natural leader that will, to fill that power vacuum?
Bev, welcome to Afghan politics. This is what we have seen in the past. This is a country that has been at war in this latest iteration continuously since 1979 after the Soviet Red Army invaded. It was that led to the rise of groups like the Taliban. When the Red Army pulled out, we saw a civil war, various warlords competing for power. And now we see that same void potentially appearing again. With the Taliban taking control, other warlords, some backed by the United States, looking to fight against the Taliban, and this weak central government. We've already seen that the defence chief has been removed. There's a lot of criticism of Ashraf Ghani, saying that he's not providing the leadership that is essential here. The Americans, the US has said there is no reason why the Afghan military is not prepared and equipped to be able to defeat this Taliban insurgency. And yet we're not seeing it. In some cases, when the Taliban move into some of these cities, the Afghan forces simply peel away. They simply allow them to take this. So it shows there is issues of morale. There are issues of corruption. Some police and military say that they haven't been paid in weeks, and that erodes that willingness to fight. So we are going to see this, and we've already seen Ashraf Ghani pointing the finger at the United States, saying it is the US that is pulling out and allowing the Taliban to gain a foothold and putting the country at the mercy of the Taliban again. So we're seeing all of this infighting. We've seen this before, and what we saw before, emerging out of the civil war, emerging out of the battles of the various warlords and weak civilian government, was the Taliban was able to take control of Afghanistan. And that's what the Taliban seeks to achieve again. And as I say, we are seeing more and more parts of the country and cities falling under Taliban rule.
Yeah, looks like that is where it is headed. Stan, always appreciate your analysis. Thanks so much.
Fantastic, Bev. A pleasure to be with you.